Welcome to another episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, talk to relatively famous people. You may be saying, well, what qualifies you, Chip? My sister is Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. And today we have a crazy, amazing guest. I love this guy's dad. I actually had a chance to meet him, and he gave me some life lessons, which we're going to talk about. Today we have David DeLuise, the son of Dom DeLuise.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
David, welcome to Relatively Famous. I'm excited to have you here, man. I love your dad.
I loved him too. Thank you, Chip. And I love your sister.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I never met your sister, but I do, and we'll get into this, but I do have a little story about Wheel of Fortune and also Jeopardy, how those came, what was the origin of them, you know?
Okay, well, hey, just dive right into that, and then we'll talk a little bit about who you are.
Well, this is what I heard because I grew up with, the Griffins, with Merv Griffin and Julian Griffin and Tony Griffin, their son.
Yeah.
And apparently, Julian is the one who came up with the idea of asking, or giving the answers, and then having someone have to form the question, and also look, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true that Julian came up with the background for both of those games, yet Merv took the credit for coming up with them. You never know where the origin is.
That's true. Hey, you know what? Maybe I'll have to get her on as a guest, and we'll find out.
That's a good idea.
Your dad. I'll just tell you a quick story about your dad and me. I used to work at King World, which syndicated Wheel Jeopardy and Candid Camera. They brought back Candid Camera, and your dad, Dom, was the host for a while. And I'm standing in the kitchen with a bunch of people. He comes in, and we're all excited because he's there. And visually, you can see people watching on YouTube. You'll see I was standing there like this. If you're just listening, I've got my arms crossed and my fingers tucked under my arms. And your dad asked me, "So what do you want to do?" And I kind of fumbled some answer. I don't know. And he goes, "Never going to happen for you." And of course, I look at him, who the hell are you to tell me that? And he goes, "Look at you. You got your arms all tucked in. You're all squished in." He goes, "Open up. Talk to me. Be open. Otherwise, you're just so closed up. No one wants to give you the time of day." And I try to keep that in my thoughts all the time. I might be at a party and I'll find myself doing this, and I'll move my hands,
It's interesting because our energy, as an actor, you watch yourself, you observe other people, because if you have a scene where you're supposed to be a little blocked off, crossing your legs and crossing your arm kind of keeps your energy in. But if you open up, you're more receptive to what's coming your way. And it's funny that you say that, because I say that all the time, because I do an acting school, the AGB, Actors Giving Back, the David DeLuise Acting Studio. And a lot of times kids will sit there and they'll put their hands in front of them, and I'll say, you're blocking your energy for me. I want you to open up so that we can communicate and we can think. But you mentioning that story to me is so cool, because I'm like really getting it, that it's coming from my dad,
Yeah, he was he did it in a friendly way. He wasn't being mean, but he really kind of like took my hands and said, "Open up" and stuff,
Yeah. He was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but he was only doing that out of love, to say, "Oh, I see someone that's, blocking their energy from coming out. So let me say that." My dad loved talking and studying human beings. He was always genuinely interested in what was going on with others, which was so wonderful.
Dude, and comedian, he was out just top of the line. I even still love the Cannonball movies, Captain Chaos.
Really funny. I did watch the original one recently, and again, it's funny and it's quotable and it's great. yet it didn't hold up as much as I wanted it to,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it still is. I mean, for the time, it was great. And I think one of the Hal Needham was the director. Bert and Hal had a really good idea, which was, oh my God, these outtakes are so funny.
My
You know, we
God.
want everyone to see them. So putting the outtakes at the end of the movie in the credits was genius. It was so funny, you know.
Yeah, think of how many movies have followed that. I don't know if they were the first, but it sure seems like it now.
Uh,
Now it's
I
like,
know this. I
yeah,
know the answer to this. Smokey and the Bandit 1, which my dad was not in. My dad
yep.
was in Smokey and the Bandit 2, where he played the Dr. Bombay. But in number 1, they did the the outtakes. They played them. So that was the first movie that, you know, in that group at least,
Yeah.
that had done the outtakes during the credits.
Well, cool. Well, now that, and I always encourage listeners and viewers, if you aren't familiar with Dom DeLuise, Google him. That's so enough about the dad. Google who he is. Let's find out who David is.
Yeah, but specifically, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. My dad was on the Dean Martin show, and he did a lot of Mel Brooks movies and everything. And the beautiful thing was Mel was is my godfather, and I
Oh wow.
got to do an interview with him. He's 97, because I do this podcast, Wizards of Waverly Pond, where we rewatch the show that I did on Disney Channel with Selena Gomez, and we've done like 60 episodes, and you know, there's just so many, you know, shows that you can watch, and we do interview people from the show. We interviewed Selena and different actors from the show, but we're kind of running out of people. Not to say that's why I asked Mel to do the podcast, but we asked him, and he gave us his time, and the episode is out, and if anybody wants to watch it, I got great stories from him about the past and about stuff, which was so fun. But if you're going to Google my dad, Google the outtakes from the Cannonball Run. It's
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, to talk about my dad, I learned, I mean, from both my mom and dad. My mom did a lot of Broadway. She was in a show with, or a movie with George Burns. It's called The Sunshine Boys, and
Yeah.
a lot of other things too. But she definitely was the mom, you know, while Dad was making movies and stuff. I have two older brothers, Michael and Peter, and yeah, I learned everything about acting from my dad. He always was studying the human experience. You know, what affects us, what makes us happy or sad or frustrates us. He liked to break down material. He would go over auditions with me a lot of times. And he was just a great dad. And I was very lucky, because I had, you know, when I was growing up, Burt Reynolds and Carl Reiner, Neil Simon, Gene Wilder,
Oh
Merv
my God. Yeah.
Griffin, you know, listen, the list is long. There's Dick Van Dyke, Carol Burnett. I mean, everybody. They were all friends. You know,
Yeah.
they all had worked together on variety shows and done that, and they all stayed friends. And my dad, on Sundays, would have gatherings with everybody, and you know, they would sing show songs, and it was funny, because they would have a dinner, and Mel Brooks would not leave until he felt like he said the funniest thing of the night. So there was a little competition thing going on there, you know,
Yeah.
which was so fun. And you know, that era, that time with you know, my dad did a lot of Dean Martin shows. He hosted the Tonight Show a few times, and then also if you're going to Google my dad, there's a couple of real classic Johnny Carsons with my dad, where my dad did this thing called the egg trick, and then they have eggs, and my dad did this thing where he uses a broom and hits these, you know, things, and then the eggs go in these glasses. But then they were on the set, and they had these eggs, so Johnny went over and put an egg in my dad's pocket and smashed it, and it's just really funny. The comedy back then, there was this camaraderie, you
Yeah.
know, that was so great. But Nowadays it's a little different, with social media and there's just people are just famous because they're famous. There's no talent, behind them. There's nothing that's hitting. I don't know. I guess I first experienced that with like Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
That sorry, that they were kind of just famous for being famous, and the talent back then, the triple threat. You got to dance, sing, and act. Now you don't have to do anything. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's true.
So sorry, I just keep talking and
Nah,
talking,
man,
but
it's great. I love that. The old. That's. I love that old Hollywood. That era. Dean Martin was. I still love to hear him sing. I was friends with Ricky Martin, his youngest son, for years. Unfortunately, passed away.
yeah.
I got Allison Martino coming on as a guest. She's vintage Los Angeles. She loves the old Hollywood. She keeps it going. I sometimes wish I think I was in the wrong area, that the comedy you're talking about and just the camaraderie they had.
Yeah.
When you were doing Witches of Waverly Place, did you have that feeling?
I love you. I love you so much. It was Wizards of
Wizards,
Waverly
that's right.
Place, but I'm going to tell you a little story on that, and I want to hear your question.
Okay.
But we won 2 Emmys, and Louis C.K. was at the Creative Arts Emmys. And when he opened the thing up, he didn't say Wizards of Waverly Place. He said Witches of Waverly Palace. Oh, I just thought it was so funny. And the ad on that story is at the Emmys. They say you only have got 45 seconds to accept it. Part of the 45 seconds is your walk up. So I was trying to be really silly, and I ran up, and I do like slips and falls and pranks and a lot of physical comedy. Well, I was trying to do a kind of slip and fall on the stage, where if the stage was a certain height, and that's where I should have launched myself, I launched myself from the first step. So I misjudged the space, and I landed on my shoulder, completely perpendicular, and I shattered my collarbone. And so I have a plate in my neck right now. And we did win 2 Emmys, which was great. But
There you go.
so back to your question on Wizards. What is the question? Sorry, Joe.
That's okay. And it's funny. My son used to watch that when I think he was probably about 7 when I think it first came out, right? 2007,
Yes, it was
something
about
like that.
07 or
Yeah.
something. It was about 15 years ago.
Yeah. So I watched it with him a couple times. So the question was, did you guys have that kind of camaraderie that you feel your dad had with some of his TV shows or some of his friends? And is Selena going to have you on Only
Yeah,
Murders in
good
the Building?
question. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, that's so funny. I would love to be on Only Murders. I'll tell you a Steve Martin story in a second. So funny, just genius. And him and Martin Short. When Martin Short does the Jiminy Glick, so funny. So we have a lot of like feeling like family at Wizards, not just the cast, but the behind the scenes. It was very much like we were family. It was very, we were very lucky. I would say that when you're doing a television show, and maybe people know this and maybe they don't, that when you're doing a TV show, sometimes the people hate each other. Like on this is a big old reference, but Moonlighting, I believe Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis did not get along at all. Like they wouldn't speak to each other off camera, yet their chemistry on camera was wonderful. So you never know. With that said, everything on Wizards was great. We all got along. It was really a wonderful familial group. I did. And it's lucky because usually there's a little something. And I'll tell you this, I did Third Rock from the Sun with John Lithgow and Jane Curtin and Joey Gordon-Levitt. And I did about 55 episodes of that. I was a smaller part. I was a student in John Lithgow's classroom. And I was doing a series with Christina Applegate called Jessie. And it was on after Friends, which was amazing back in the day. But there was one guy who was just mean. He was this actor. He was not nice to anybody. and I was still doing Third Rock at the same time as Jesse. And I said, Jane Curtin was there. She was there. And I said, what do you do when someone's being a butthead like that? Because you want to be nice. And, it was hard to deal with. And she said, oh, you don't know the rule? And I said, what's the rule? She said, there's always one person. There's always one. And if you don't know who it is, it's you. And I was like, okay, so now I know who it is. But with Third Rock as well, I got to be around for 7 years. I learned what it was like to live on a sitcom. You know what I mean? To direct it, to be a part of it. I directed 7 episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place. That was really fun. But the family feeling was great, So yes, I'm not going to be on Murders in the Building. My Steve Martin story is this: we went to Carl Reiner, was a very good family friend. God rest his soul. One of the funniest, sweetest, most creative. I mean, just Dick Van Dyke Show. Just everything he did was so good, And his son Rob is amazing as well, obviously. And so we went to the screening of Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which was a movie that Steve Martin and Carl Reiner did, which is great. If you haven't seen it, everybody should see it. They took old movies with like Humphrey Bogart and all these people, Jimmy Cagney, all this, and they cut together and filmed a whole movie and storyline with all the old actors cut it in together. So the movie was there. It was so great. And there was this guy off to the corner with like a coat and a hat on. And, my dad said hello to him and he left, and he was just very quiet and shy. And my dad said to Carl Reiner, where's Steve Martin? Where is he? And he said, that was him. He just left. But he was just in person, because Steve Martin for us was, I'm a wild and crazy guy, like that very gregarious, outgoing personality. So my dad was like, that wasn't him. But he left. It was funny. With Wizards, there's a new offshoot of the show. It's not a real reboot. It's a sequel. So the oldest boy, David Henry, is doing that show, and I'm going to do 2 episodes of that. Selena is doing 1 episode because she's doing only Murders in the Building. She's doing 1 episode, and then now it's about my son's family. And are you sitting down? I'm the grandfather now.
Oh, my gosh, man. How'd that
all
happen?
my gray hairs. I don't know. Although I'll say this, my oldest daughter is 32. And I had her when I was 21 years old. I don't know how old you were when you had your son, but I was 21. I was like, what? This is not what's happening here. So I really had to focus and start earning money and paying for stuff. And I love being a dad. I have 2 daughters, and being a dad is the best thing that I've ever done in my life.
Yeah,
but
I was 39 when I had mine.
Okay, so you were a grown up.
Well, you know what? It was at a point in life. I didn't become a grown up till about 2 years later when I was still running in the Hollywood frame of mind, like, oh, Pablo Escobar's paying for everything. To give you the hint, it was not a good time for me. But he was just over 2 or 3 when I finally got my act together, got clean and sober. So being a dad, I was actually able to be present this later in life, And had I had him at 21, the poor kid would, he'd be in therapy.
Well, listen, we're all in therapy. It's okay. Therapy isn't bad. I like therapy. Therapy helps me. How old is he now, and what does he do?
He's 23, and or is he 20? He'll be 24 this year.
Oh my God, Chip, you're doing my dad's joke. So my dad would always say, well, Peter is 22 and 28 and 20. He said, it's very hard to keep track because the age changes every year.
That's funny. Now he's 23. He'll be 24 this year. He lives down in Charleston, South Carolina. He works with Adams Outdoors, selling billboards and digital advertising, and he's doing good. You know what? He's on his own journey, and I'm here in San Antonio. And
as long as he's happy, that's not as long as, I mean,
Yeah.
as long as you're doing your best. Now, my mom always said something to me. She said, we all have a gift to give, and you should give your gift. And I say that to my students at my acting school, that we all have this wonderful thing inside of us. And like my dad said to you, don't hold it in,
Yeah.
let it out, and give your gift, is what my mom always said when I left the house. And my dad always said, do you want a sandwich? That's what he would say.
That's funny.
But
So tell me a little bit about the podcast that you do.
I will
Okay.
tell you, but I want to say this, that your son sells billboard space. I was looking into doing billboard space because I have a cafe. It's called the Bigfoot Cafe. If anybody's listening, you can look that up on Instagram. My dad built the house in a place called Pine Mountain.
Yeah.
And do you know Pine Mountain?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's up the 5, and it's about an hour and 45 minutes outside of LA, and it's up on a hilltop. It's about 6,000 foot elevation, so we get snow, and we in California there is snow, shockingly. And so I was looking into getting some billboards. They are very expensive. They wanted, I don't know what it was, like $2,000 a month for something off the 5 freeway, which was very high.
Yeah.
We're just a very small, I would say, mom and pop and Bigfoot restaurant. And, well, it's like grab and go. There's gifts, there's flowers, there's books, there's sandwiches, there's good coffee. There was no good coffee on the mountain. So coffee was, 40 minutes away if you're not making your own coffee, So we opened a coffee store, and the billboards, I was just saying so this is what I did. There's a woman that lives right near the freeway, and she has some land. And I said, do you mind if I put up a banner? And she said, no problem. So I got a banner and I put it up with my friend. And so now there's a Bigfoot Cafe, my own makeshift billboard off the 5 freeway. Okay, so to answer your question, my podcast is called Wizards of Waverly Pod. And I do it with Jennifer Stone, who played Harper on Wizards. And I'm the older person. She's the younger person. She's about 30 something. And you get different perspectives we rewatch Wizards, and then we'll do a synopsis of the episode, and we'll talk about it and what we remembered and the things that were happening during that episode. And then we also interview a lot of the actors that were on there, or the directors we've interviewed, and the hair and makeup and wardrobe and costume. We give everybody the background of what it is to make a television show, a sitcom like that. And it's really fun. We've had a good time. And like I said, we had Mel Brooks on there and had an episode, but typically it's the people who were, from the show. And Selena did an episode for us. She was super sweet. She was in New York shooting her show, and she not on Skype, but we did it through Riverside or whatever that is. And we had a really nice interview. And it's so interesting too, Chip, because you get the perspective of the people and what it was like for them, to have another perspective of a guest or the director from the show, or, because there's different directors, but it was really fun. And everybody has a podcast, right?
Hey, so even Vanna White's brothers got one.
There you go. And I like it. I think it's nice. And, we've been able to, I'll just tell you, we do 6 episodes in a day. So we don't, I think you do a similar thing, but we don't want to take too much time. To do this every week is exhausting. Yeah. Even just the putting out the clips and the social stuff, there's a lot of work to that, So we do 6 episodes in a day, and then that's nice because then it lays out. But with that said, I have to remember 3 episodes at one go and get ready to talk to 3 guests, and it's tricky. So, but as you can tell, I can talk a lot.
Hey, that's good. Now, is another couple of your brothers, one of your brothers act? Do both of them act? Is there a big family competition of resumes, and is there going to be have you guys ever acted all together? Yes to everything. So yes, my brother Peter, the oldest, acts. He was on 21 Jump Street with Johnny Depp,
and he did acting. And then he was in Canada, and he got a landed immigrant status. So when you're in Canada and you're working above the line, if you're either the lead actor, or the producer, or the director, and you're Canadian, you get a bigger tax incentive, a bigger tax break. So Peter became a Canadian, and then he started directing a show and writing it and producing it called Stargate, which has a big fan base. And he still directs, and he lives in Vancouver and is married to Anne Marie, my sister-in-law, has a son, Jake, who is in his second year of college. And then my brother Michael did many, many sitcoms and stuff. He played Dennis Franz's son on NYPD Blue. He was in Wayne's World and many other stuff. He did a wonderful recurring part on Gilmore Girls. He was so funny. He played TJ. He played a dumb guy. And it's not easy. People think it's easy to play dumb. It's not easy because you really have to remove thought, you know. And to answer your question about us working together, I played his brother on that show for a few episodes. And then also my brothers both did a show with Roy Schreider. Am I saying it from Jaws? Called Sequest. And they both were on that. And I did an episode and my dad did an episode. So if somebody got a job in my family, we're like, oh, does anybody have a brother? Or is there a dad? What's happening? You know? And my brothers and my dad all played my family on Third Rock from the Sun. They came in and did a guest thing. So,
oh, wow.
And when you say competition, I didn't know there was competition until I started booking jobs. You know, it was interesting because Peter was 21 when he booked 21 Jump Street. So it was like right out of high school for him. And he had that job for 5 or so years. So his resume wasn't very long, but he had worked for a long time. And then I started booking some jobs and stuff. And he was like, what is happening down there in Los Angeles? You know? So that's how my brother talks, by the way. That's my imitation of him. I guess there was a little competition. I don't know. I didn't feel really competitive with them because they're older than me and the parts are a little different. Although me and my brother Michael did go up for some similar parts. But look, here's why I think we enjoyed being in the entertainment business so much. We wanted to do what our parents were doing, you know, and we got to go to the set of Cannonball Run and meet Jackie Chan and Roger Moore and Farrah Fawcett. And, you know, we got to go to the set of History of the World. And, you know, it was really fun to be a part of. We were like, this looks like fun. And my dad said to us, you can always have you can always get into this business, but you can only have a childhood once. So we made our own movies. Like, no, I'm 52. So when we were younger, a video camera was a big deal to have at home, you know? So my dad got us a video camera and it was like like an old news camera kind of thing. And we had a battery pack and the VHS tape went into a thing. But we had 3 hours of a charge. We could go shoot on location. We started cutting our own movies together. We started doing everything that you can do on our own. So we were learning the business, but just having fun and playing, you know. And I did plays and stuff like that when I was younger. And I actually did a TV movie with my dad called Happy. And I played his son when I was like 11. And I went on the Merv Griffin show when I was 11 and was a guest on the Merv Griffin show, you know.
That's wild. All right. So I hate to interrupt, but we are running out of time. I try to keep about 30 minutes or so.
Come on, we just got
man.
here. What's happening, man?
You are Hollywood royalty, so I'll have you back on another episode.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to throw a challenge out to Selena Gomez to have you on Murders in the Building. Only Murders.
Yes, that would be great. Why not?
Yeah,
right? Why not?
Perfect. And this is the last question I ask all my guests. Is there something that we didn't talk about or a question I didn't ask that you really want to share about?
The first thought, my genuine first thought that came up was my dog, Tony. I have a little mini dachshund, long hair. He's the cutest thing in the world. And there's something, okay, I know why I'm saying this, because there's unconditional love from him. If I leave for like a day and then come back, he's the most excited he's ever been to see me. If I take the trash out and come back in, he's the most excited he's ever been to see me. So the love that I get from him is amazing. I don't know. So that's the one thing I'm going to say. The thing that my dog Tony reminds me of is that we all need to love each other, and having unconditional love for anyone in your life is a good thing. And I try my best to be as positive as possible. So that's my answer.
And that's a perfect way to end today. It's been amazing. We really could go on, man. You're hilarious. I love hearing stories about your dad. I love hearing, about what you guys are doing, what the family's doing. I hate that you're going to hang up and just go hang out on the beach out your back door, but someone's got to do it.
Life is difficult. Life is very good. No, I'm silly. It's been so fun. I'm really glad that you had me here, and it's a pleasure to get to know you. And this is really nice. And everybody should check out my thing that I'd love them to do is check out the Bigfoot Cafe on Instagram, because I'm very proud of the fact that I know we're going, but I just want to say this. I didn't know that I could put a cafe together and open a cafe, but I tried. As long as you try, if you fail or not, that's not the point. It's about trying, so
Absolutely.
I want to leave you guys with that. So,
hey, I'm trying a podcast, it's work,
Yes.
it either works or it doesn't. So anyway,
Yeah.
David, thank you for your time today. This has been amazing. And I look forward to having you as a guest. And if I'm out in LA, we'll have a cup of coffee. Probably not
At
up
the
at
Bigfoot
Bigfoot. That's
Cafe.
too far. But
Come on.
But hey, you know what? I'm up for a drive. We'll go to the Bigfoot and have some coffee.
Okay, good.
All right. Thank you, David.
All right. Take care, everybody.
It was so amazing having David on as a guest today. I am so grateful that you are spending your time listening and watching Relatively Famous, the podcast where we talk to relatively famous people. It's humbling to have this opportunity for me. If you are a subscriber, I'm grateful. If you happen to have just stumbled across this, I hope that you will continue to subscribe, to watch episodes, to share it with your friends and family. Hey, if you're famous and you have a relative you want to be on the show, let us know. If you know someone who's a relative, reach out to us. We're always looking for guests. I'd like to thank our partner, Nelco Media, for putting it together. I'd like to thank our location, which is Nelco Comics in San Antonio, if you're looking for some comic books. Until next time, thank you. Thank you, David.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.